All right, let's move on to part two of Automower installation. And this time we're going to get into how to work around fences and things like that. So here we have the same layout as we used in the first video showing your basic installation. So now what you might run into on some properties is, part of the area is fenced off or something like that. And really you have to break this down, start with the perimeter because you're going to have to go around the whole property. I mean, that's going to be your goal, right? You want to get everything. So we left the purple wire here, as you can see. That was our perimeter there. So we left that on there because essentially that's going to be the same thing with just a few minor tweaks. So we got that going around there. Of course, the green around there is our property line. We've got the road, the house, the sidewalk, swimming pool, garden, the volcano in the backyard, the flower bed here with the islands around it, things like that. So what we'll do now is we'll make this into a bit more common scenario that we see. What's a good one to use here? So a lot of places you'll have a fence that comes out like here, right here, go across this yard, out to the property line, up and around, and it'll follow that whole back side of the property there. Come around here to this side. So it goes around here and then it comes in right behind your shed to the house. So that whole backyard there is fenced in. This way the kids can run wild and jump in the swimming pool and have their, you can have your deck parties and nobody can get in without paying to get through the gate, things like that. You don't have people getting in there at night and jumping in your volcano by accident or something, and whatever reason you have to put a fence up, there it is. But so we want to keep the Automower back here because it's hidden, and of course you got power right there. There's a number of reasons why you want to keep it on this back side of the house here. This is where we had it in the first video that we did with the simple installation. So what we got to do now is we got to figure out how we're going to get that Automower through the fence to get these areas out in here, because we're going to be starting it, like I said, back here. So, typically, of course, you're going to have a gate somewhere in that fence because, you're not going to want to have to go through the house every time you want to get to your backyard. Over in here would probably be the best spot, the most common spot where you would have something like that. So, in this scenario, let's just say that our gate is right in here. So this is our gate right here. Put these little pillars up there. That's our gate. Now it's very possible there could be a gate on the other side, but we know for sure there's going to be at least that one. So we're putting it right there. So, of course, that's going to be no big problem. Now, there's two ways you can do this there with that gate. One way is, depending on the type of fence you have, you could have this set up the way you're seeing it here. And you could have that wire ran right underneath the fence so that you don't have to move anything there. You can have it ran through the fence here if you really wanted to, and the mower would just kind of bounce into the fence and run up to it, hit it, back up, go a different direction, be the same way from the other side, and same thing over here. Or the other thing you can do is you could reroute this wire over here on this side. Just eliminate that there, and you could bring it up to the fence and go right along the fence. Go behind your shed there, right along it. and then back out. You know, if you can't get under the fence, if you can't get through the fence, that would be the way you'd have to do it. And same thing here. You know, come out here around the fence post and back in. That's probably the way you're going to want to do it if you're using an install machine or you just don't feel like cutting the wire. If it was me doing it and I was using the install machine, that's how I would do it right there. I'd go around these posts because otherwise you got to take the wire off the machine, which means you got to cut it. And you're going to have another splice there you don't really need. You're going to have another splice here that you don't really need to go under that fence. So this is just as easy. Bring the wire out around, then go back out. Same thing here. But the other thing it does is now you've just created this corridor right here with your perimeter wire. So we would keep the same setup that we had before with the guide wire, but actually we would change this up here too, because we had our island coming for the shed right here, and we would eliminate that. We wouldn't bring it in that way. What we would do is we would bring it in from right back here, because we have the fence there and that wire is so close, because that way we're using less wire to get in there to create that island. And then depending on which mower we had, if we have a mower with multiple guide wires to use, which in this scenario you really should have that. You know, if you got a yard like this, don't try to go cheap and get like a 315X or a 310 or something like that. Go with at least a 430. You know, it's going to pay off in the long run. Don't skimp out just because you think, oh, I can really push this 315 and it'll handle my yard. But no, you got to take into consideration all these obstacles you have. So we're going to go with, you know, having a 430X. So what we're going to do is we're definitely going to start from back there, and we're going to come from right here to be our charging station, right in here. So we're going to come out around here with our guide wire, and we're going to go through the gate, and then we're going to run our guide wire right in here. And that's why we moved that island wire back to there, because you don't want to cross your guide wire over a set of wires that are going in for an island, because it can cause interference when you got 3 different wires running through right there and they're crossing over each other. And, you know, 2 of them are canceling each other out, and then there's a 3rd one over top of it. It can get kind of confusing. So here we can just have a straight shot out. You know, we can tie into anywhere out here. We'll just go down there for the sake of just, you know, ending that wire. So there we go. We got that guide wire there, and now we've eliminated that problem. You know, we can get the mower through there, and we can get out and mow this yard. Real simple, you know. All you got to do is make sure that gate is open. Or, you know, maybe even just put a little doggy door in the bottom of that gate, or, you know, something that the mower can go through. If you really want to, you can close that. When the mower comes out, it will just be mowing in this backyard and can't get to that part. Pretty simple. You know, there are some people that they say, well, how can I get my mower to only mow my front yard during the day? Well, here you go. You know, it can be out here during the day. If you shut that gate, it's not getting out there if it comes out to mow at night. That's a, you know, pretty simple way to do it there. So now we got to get our mower over to this area here, right? So now there's a couple ways we can do that. One is, if there is a seam at the end of your driveway, or you feel like cutting a seam in your driveway, you know, instead of having this wire here, we would bring this wire right across here and connect it. So the driveway would be part of your loop. Now that's something that a lot of people don't like to do, just because there's a good chance you're going to end up running over the machine, or a guest is going to come in there and they're going to run over the mower or something, you know. It's just, you're taking an awfully big risk there. If you've got enough driveway, you're conscientious about it, and, you know, things like that, you got your mower on a timer, you know it's not going to be mowing when you're coming home, or you know that the gate's going to be shut and the mower will only be back there, you don't have to worry about running over it, then yeah, that would be a good idea. The other thing you can do, and we've done this a couple times, is instead of having the whole driveway in play, you could bring the wire through just one spot there, make a crossover path for it, a corridor across your driveway. If you got a blacktop driveway, of course, this is going to mean, you know, getting a cutoff saw and cutting some grooves in there to run the wire through it, or somehow getting the wire buried underneath the driveway. Cement driveway, if you got the seams, then it's a little easier to do. You can just run the wire across in the seams, and you'll open up that, you know, like you would have like an area right here where the mower could cross. And then you would only, you know, have it there in that one area. So not like you have to look over the whole driveway to find it. But if you can avoid going across the driveway, I recommend it, just because it's more hassle. It's more to look for. Like I say, it's a kind of a big risk. Yeah, you might see it, but you know, you never know who's coming in there to visit you, or stopping by, or some random strangers just, you know, going down the road and decide they need to turn around. They whip in your driveway real quick and crash. There goes your mower. They don't know what they hit. They just take off. So best route is going to be, we need to get that mower over this yard without crossing the driveway. Now, the other thing you could do is you could physically pick the mower up and you could sit it out here, and you could turn it on to mow this as a secondary area. That is right there in your main menu. When you hit start, you will see it says main area, secondary area. You can bring that mower out. You can physically place it here in this area, and you can turn it on to mow for a predetermined amount of time, or just till the battery goes dead. And it'll bounce around out in here, and then it'll stop when either that time is up or the battery runs dead. And then you got to go look for it. It will have no way of getting its way back home to the charging station. It's just stuck in this area. That's not really that great of an idea. I mean, if you got to do that, you got to do it, but it's not really going to help your cause, because then you still got to manually work on this thing, you know? You might as well be out there with a push mower at that point. And there you are, you run your battery completely dead on the mower, so it's a little bit longer now. You got to wait after you put it back on a charging station that can go out and mow the rest of that yard there. And, like, you know, let's say you put it out there and you forget about it. Then later on, you got to go get it, go find it, and put it back here. That's time where it could have been mowing and maintaining the rest of that yard if need be. So what you could do is you could go to the expense of installing a gate over here, like say over here in this area, you know, maybe right here by the house, or right here in the middle, you know. But either way, you know, you're gonna put a gate there. Let's make it go that way. So you put a gate there, then of course it's a no-brainer. It'd be just like this setup here. You'd bring your perimeter wires in around there, and same way here, you would come in along your fence, go through the gate and back out, and you'd have yourself a nice corridor there. Just that real simple one. The other thing you could do is you could cut a hole in the bottom of the fence, especially if it's like a chain link fence or something like that, and just make an opening about, you know, 2 to 3 feet wide and just a little bit taller than the mower, so the mower can just sneak right through there. It really all depends on what you're using this fenced-in area for. If you're trying to keep your dog in, then of course that might not be a good idea. Again, if your dog is in the house all day long while you're at work, then you could leave the gates open, the mower could go and mow and do its own thing, and you would have nothing to worry about. But that would be the way to do it, because then you would have the same setup as on the other side. You would run your guide wire, you know, right up around, out through this gate, and, you know, just tie it into the perimeter wire there somewhere, and you're set. So those are really the only options that you'd have. Either you run through the gate, cut a hole in the fence, or you manually pick up the mower and put it out there in that area to mow. Now, if for some stupid reason you had no gate here and no gate here, And you had no other way to do it, and you had this fence going away across here, you would have to pick the mower up and physically place it out here in this yard as well. And that's really not something you want to do, I'm sure. You don't want to have to carry that thing over here, then pick it up, then go over there and put it over there. That's just a pain in the butt. It's not the mower working on its own then. So, yeah, like I said, those are really the only ways to do that. Now, again, here, if you open up the driveway, then you could run this. You wouldn't have to have the opening over here. You could run this guide wire out through the gate as well, down through here and across the driveway, and then tie it in out here somewhere to the perimeter wire, so that you could then send the mower out that second guide wire to start out over in here. That wouldn't be that hard to do. You would also be able to have it follow the guide wire back to the charging station if it was over here. So to get you a straight shot there, but it's going to be a long haul to get the whole way back around and up to here. So ideally, this is the best scenario. Even if you had to bring this out further and you had to come the whole way out here to the corner of your property, and there's a fence post or something there that you could get through and bring it out here, that would still be better than going the whole way around there and across your driveway. Now, in a setup like this, so you got everything done and you set it up this way here, so you have essentially, this would be your main zone right here, because this is where your charging station's at. Let's just make it more identifiable. That's your charging station. So you have your charging station there, and we'll call this zone 1 back here. Zone 1, we'll make this one over here zone 2, and this out here zone 3. So now you've got to try to mow all 3 of those zones. And this one, of course, zone 1 is going to be the easiest because that's where the charging station's at. It's going to back out of there, and it can just, if the gate's closed, either one of those, it's just going to mow that area there. Zone 2, you would have to use, let's call this guide 1. Guide 1. Guide 2. So to get to zone 2, you would have to follow guide 1 out if you want to start down in here. Or you could have the mower follow this perimeter wire. It'll take a little bit longer, and it'll do some bouncing around, but it could start out here, right here in this corner using that perimeter wire. Then you would do the same thing to get to zone 3. You would program it to follow guide 2 through this corridor right here. Follow it down that guide wire through the corridor, and you can have it start, right here, right through the gate. You can have it start down in here, however you wanted to do it. The other thing you could do is you could also, because we would have our perimeter wire changed and it would come out here and then down around, you could also have the mower follow the perimeter wire, down through here till it got to the fence post and around through, and then say you want to have it started here in this corner. All you have to do is measure how far that is from the charging station along that wire down to here, or just get a rough estimate, and the mower would start up right down here. If you really wanted to, you could have it go the whole way around there and up to there, and it would start back here in that corner. For this area back here, you really don't have anything to worry about. You set this up so that, let's just give a rough estimate, 20% of the time, it's going to follow guide 1 out to right here and start mowing. And then, let's say 50% of the time, it's going to follow guide 2 out and come to right here in the middle, and it's going to start mowing. Then the rest of the time, it'll just back out of the charger and start mowing right where it's at, right out in here. And it'll take care of that area right there. So now if you've got the gates closed, either one of these gates, and it was backing out of the charging station and it decided, okay, this is the time that I'm going to go out guide 1 to start mowing over here in zone 2. That gate's closed, it's going to go to right here. It's going to run into that gate, and it's going to back up, and it's going to start mowing right there where it's at. Same scenario over here if this gate is closed. Now, if this gate is closed, whoops, if this gate is closed over here, and it was trying to go out guide 2, and it can't get through there, it will start mowing right here in this area, and it'll mow all around there. If this gate is open, there is still a possibility it can come down here, and it can just get turned the right way, and it could end up coming out through here, and it could end up mowing in that area. So it ends up down in here, battery starts to get low, it's got the guide wire to follow it straight back, and going to charge itself up, and it'll do its thing. You know, that's the simple part of it. So that's pretty self-explanatory there. So then we get into the openings for your gates and how wide they got to be and things like that. Now, of course, they've got to be, at least wide enough for the Automower itself to physically fit through there, which it's going to be, or chances are, a human being's going to have to turn sideways to get through it, because these things are not all that big. So really, you can just turn on the automatic passage handling, and what it's going to do is it's going to come over here and it's going to sense these wires, the perimeter wire here. You know, these are fairly close together, and it's going to use the loop sensor to determine that, and it's going to know that it has to try to get in between there, and it's going to pass through that, and then it's got a sensor on the back that's going to tell it that it's already through and that the area has opened up, and then it's just going to pick a direction and it's going to go in it, you know, to start mowing this over here. Now, if you're sending it out the guide wire, or it's coming back and it's going on the guide, using the guide wire to get home, then it depends on what you have your corridor settings set at in the mower as to how it's going to handle going through this corridor. But really, I mean, these things are so simple. You can just set that up to let it determine it itself, and you'll have no problems at all. If you've got your settings set too wide, then you could run into problems there where it's bouncing around trying to get through this. You know, if your passageway is really narrow and you have it set to 0, then it's going to ride right on top of this guide wire, and you're always going to have that beat down trail through there. So you want to give it a little leeway to ride, you know, next to the guide wire, on top of it, or however, so that eliminates your tracking. And that'll be helpful, you know, so you're not having the grass beat down right in that area there, because you're already going to have a lot of foot traffic through there, I'd imagine, since it is a gate. You know, that's how people be getting in and out of your backyard, or maybe that's how you're getting stuff back there in your garden to work, or whatever. So that's the basics here of how you work around having a fence in your yard, or some kind of a boundary. I mean, heck, these could even be, instead of a fence, maybe it's a hedgerow going around there. So what you'd want to do then is just run it under some of the bushes, get a nice opening there for it to just pass through. You know, if it's down low to the ground and it's got room to get through there, wouldn't be a big deal. Run the guide wire through, run your perimeter wires right there around the trunks of the bushes, and you're good to go. Be the same thing, except you wouldn't have the gate there to worry about. It would just be able to do it randomly at any time that it chooses to go out that wire. Same way over here. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a chain link fence or a wooden fence or anything like that. There's other types of boundaries or what you can have that could get in your way, and this here is how you would solve that. This is how you get around it. Okay, I know you guys are still, well, I don't really want to spend that kind of money for a 430X. I don't want to spend that kind of money for a 450. Is there a way I could do it with the 315X? If you really, really, really are insistent on trying to skimp out and do this with a 315X, first of all, what I would suggest is if you don't want to spend the money for a 450, then you could, buy a 315X and buy a 310. How's that work for you? Set up the 315X to do all of this, 1 and 3, and have the 310 over here to do this area, or the 310 to just do this, and the 315X does 1 and 2, something like that. But if you're 100% dead set on that, the 315 is what you need. You're sure you know more than everybody else, and you think you can do it that way. Then what you would do is you would eliminate guide 2, because you only have one guide wire with the 315X or 310 or anything below 430 only has one guide wire. So we're going to eliminate this guide wire right here, and then you're left with just this one guide wire. So you've got to make the best of this situation. So what you would want to do is, first of all, you're going to have to use the guide wire to come over here, because you got a tight passageway right here, and this is a lot of funky stuff to go around. So it's just going to have to be going over here to this side. And there's one more reason, we'll get into that in here in just a little bit, but right here, when you come out of the charging station, you would want to loop this around a little bit further. This will help you out in the long run. Bring this over around here and then out to there. That'll definitely help you out. To get around your swimming pool and all that. Plus, it'll help your mower if it's over in this area. Jump onto that guide wire to get back to the charging station. Once it gets through here and it's going out across there, it's free and clear. It'll, that's not a big deal for it to go a couple extra feet out around. But the other reason why you would want to run the guide wire over here is that mower, when it comes through this side, the way you would get it through this side over here, through this fence, is you would have it follow the perimeter wire out till it got through the fence, through the gate, and then you would have it follow the perimeter wire a certain amount, like I'd say probably right here, because that's a good spot for it to, do its thing. So it's mowing all this down here. Then you're going to want to have your return home setting. You're going to want to use your perimeter wire. So instead of having that set at 11 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that, set that baby way down there. Get it down to 1 or 2 minutes, right around in that area at least. For this is again for the 315, because what will happen is the mower will follow the signal wire, or the signal coming through the wire in this direction. It will follow it this way here. This is the way it will follow this. It'll keep going that way. And it'll follow it the whole way back till, if it gets up in here and it's close enough and it senses that guide wire, it'll just jump on it and take it right back here. But, you can see it's close enough. So if you were to try to do that over here, it's going to keep following that signal in that direction. But, say your mower is right down here. Instead of it going, it's going to go back home right to this way, it is going to keep going up through here and following that wire around that way. Now, of course, when you get up to here, because that guide wire is there, it'll sense that guide wire going through this corridor and it'll take it the rest of the way. But without that guide wire here, that's what you'd be doing. This mower would be going the whole way around to try to get back to the charging station, just because it follows the signal that way, and that's the way the signal travels. So this will be your best bet. If this is your yard on a little bit smaller scale, then this is what you'd want to do. You'd want to have your guide wire going to this side, and you just want to come up with a way to get this over here. Even if you didn't have a fence here, even if you didn't have that fence there, but this was the layout of your lawn, and for some reason, you had this tight area over here, you would still want to do it this way. If this was all open, then yeah, just let it run out there. Okay, so there we just explained how you would do this if you only had one guide wire to use, and say you had 315X and you were just dead set on that's what you were going to use. You're going to wear the thing out a lot faster doing this, because it's going to spend so much time just running back to the charging station. They don't mow as long as a 430 or 450. They don't mow as fast as either of those mowers do. Really recommend spend the money, buy a 430 or a 450X for this kind of a layout. And it's not just the performance, like the speed that it mows at, or the ability to get to a certain point in the yard faster to be able to maintain it more efficiently. The other reason why it is such a good idea to go with a 430 or a 450 is what I showed you before in the first video. Let's put our guide wire back to the way we had it before here, where we have guide 1 going over here to zone 2, and we have guide 2 coming down here to zone 3. That's guide 2. So now that's with a 430X. So now what you've done, because you've just made your mower more efficient, you've given it an easier way to get back to the charging station from this little leg out here and this area right here through the fence. It's going to mow that down faster. It's going to have to mow less then, because it's getting so much done at one time. Win-win the whole way around. But the other thing that you're doing is you've got the two guide wires going out here. So if you encounter a problem with your loop signal, you got a broken wire somewhere, again, you pop off this perimeter wire and you hook in this guide wire. You create a new loop. So you can break it down into sections right there. If you use guide 1 for over here, replace guide 1, or replace this perimeter wire with guide 1. Then you've got a loop between guide 1 and all of this perimeter wire down here to where guide 1 ties into it. If that light is flashing blue, your problem is somewhere in this area. If it stays green, then you know this area is good. So then you do that again. You take this wire right here, like I just said earlier, and you leave that hooked up as your perimeter wire, but you replace guide 2 with the perimeter on this wire here. So now you just made this area right here. And again, if it's flashing blue, your break is somewhere in this area between guide 2 and the charging station on this perimeter wire. If it's green, you know this loop is good. So you already knew this one was good now because you tested it, and you know this is good. So that narrows it down to just all of this around here, right? So the way to check that is you hook both your guide wires up as perimeters. So that will go then and create a new loop coming out guide 1 to this perimeter wire, up around all of this stuff, and back to guide 2. If it's green there, then you know that part's good. But if you already got a green light in this area here that you made, and this little area here you made, chances are that's going to be your break, your flashing blue light there, unless it's something with the power supply or the charging station itself. But you upgrade to a 450X, and you got the 3 guide wires. Yeah, you don't really need that third one, but you're going to save yourself some headache if you just take and you run that guide wire right out there. So now, when you have a break in your wire, you can connect guide 2 for the perimeter wire on this side and guide 3 for the perimeter wire for this side, and now you've got this loop over here. So you just narrowed down this big open area. You know, you can do the same thing here. Put this guide 3 as the perimeter for this side, and use guide 1 for the perimeter on this side, and all of this down through here. You can narrow that down into another section. So that'll help you out later on. If you come across something like that, I mean, you got a garden there, there's a chance you might get some skunks or something coming in that likes to dig for grubs. They can dig right through that wire. It's happened before, I've seen it. Or squirrels. Squirrels are known for that kind of stuff, tearing up wires. This will help you out. You don't have to pay somebody like me to come out there and try to find this break for you and fix this wire. You can tackle it yourself. You know, even if your wire is buried, once you get that narrowed down, you're going to know, okay, I'm going to walk out here to this wire right here, and I'm just going to start walking back around here, see if I can find anything noticeable. Good chance you will. You know, if you've had a good strong loop system for a couple years, or you know, you haven't had any issues whatsoever with any kind of interference, you know, maybe the ground was wet and you came through here with your tractor, or you did something when you're plowing up your garden and you tore the wire up. You know, look for the obvious things first. Always look for the obvious, you know, spots in the ground where maybe a car ran through, or off the driveway here, or something like that, or you're plowing snow. You know, if you get this narrowed down to where this area here, if you use guide 1 for a perimeter wire and this perimeter wire over here to make this loop, and that's where your problem is at, first thing I would do is I would come out here to this driveway, check along it, make sure a car didn't get off there when it was real wet and soggy, and sink down in and snap that wire somehow. Or if somebody was plowing the driveway and they got off the driveway, or say you have a stone driveway, real easy to do then, and they dug down to the ground, maybe they caught that wire, ripped it up. After that, you would go here to your flower bed. If you were working in your flower bed, that's the next obvious place to start looking at. Or right here at the road, you know, if they were plowing snow and somehow they got back in there, yeah, that helps you save a lot of time and a lot of money when you can handle that stuff on your own. And that's the easy stuff there. You know, everybody wants to have a fit that the auto check program should be free and open to the public and they should have access to it. Well, if you can't handle going out here and finding these breaks in the wire, you know, by checking for these obvious things here and narrowing that down, then why have a fit about getting into even more complicated stuff? This is simple basics right here. You know, a wire is broken, you find the broken wire, you patch it, and on you go. So there you go. This is how you run an Automower through some fences or hedgerows or anything like that, and why it is a good idea to make that upgrade to a 430X at least, if not a 450X. Yeah, it might seem like, well, yeah, it's just too expensive compared to that 315X, but no, in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money, trust me. You know, it's going to be less wear and tear on the machine, it's going to keep your yard maintained better and more efficiently, and right here as I showed you with these guide wires, if you can add them, the more guide wires you can add, the easier it is to troubleshoot it. Even if you can't figure that out, by using those guide wires and swapping them out with perimeter wires, the dealer that you pay to come out here and fix this for you, it's going to cut down the amount of time they're going to be out there charging you for if you have those guide wires, and they can narrow it down faster. So think about it that way. You know, a lot of scenarios here to go over, and it's not just a money thing where, yeah, buy the biggest and best out there. Hey, this right here, a 430X will do this no problem and be a lot more efficient and a lot better value than a 315X would on a property like this. This is about using what will work best for the situation you have. If you try to stretch a 315X on this, you're not going to be very happy with it. I can tell you that right now. You're going to have times where it's going to be getting, just stuck out there somewhere. It's not going to be able to keep up. You have a lot of really wet days and a lot of rain, and the grass is getting out of control. It doesn't cut as big of a path. It doesn't mow as fast. Just so many downsides to that with a yard like this. There's a lot of obstacles there for it to navigate through. That's another thing. A lot of trees. You got the little corridor here with the shed and things like that. Definitely just go with the 430. If you're doing the 0% financing and you're taking the 4 years on that, at what, $700 difference? Yeah, over 4 years, it's not going to really make a big dent in your wallet there. Yeah, I can't express that enough. Don't undersize it, Listen to your dealer. If they're an experienced dealer, which they, you should be able to tell that when you go in and you talk to them, whether they have experience with this or not. Or just flat out ask them, hey, how many of these have you sold? How many of these have you actually installed? You're going to know right away if they know what they're talking about or not, or if they're just trying to sell you on something you don't need. If they can explain this to you, this is why you need this, listen to them. They're going to know more about this than you are. It's just that simple. That's all there is to it, You got to use what works for the job. You wouldn't go in here with a, if you're going to put this driveway in, you wouldn't go in there and try digging that out by hand with a shovel. You'd have somebody come in there with a skid loader or something to do that. So why do that with your yard? Why get the cheapest thing possible when you know it's just not going to work? It's not going to be effective. But at any rate, there it is. So you guys have any questions or comments or anything, or any ideas on how you would lay some of this stuff out, leave some comments under this video. We're always open to suggestions, and if there's something else that we missed here and you would want to see or wanted to know about, don't hesitate to ask. And we'll be getting some more videos like this here together soon. We've encountered a lot of stuff in our installations, so we're going to put some videos together showing possible scenarios of some other stuff that we've ran into and some of you out there might run into. So, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and stop back again soon.